Thanks for tuning in today, and I hope you'll stay tuned in. We're going to talk about a lot of issues, some of which will be uplifting for you, I think. You know, one of the mantras of this show that I talk about over and over because it's just so critical and so easy to lose sight of is loving your neighbors yourself and being a good steward of the earth and thinking about posterity, because thinking about posterity is loving your future neighbor. So the loving your neighbor thing is all encompassing. It really covers the bandwagon. So today we're going to talk about something very different. I don't know about you, but I love beef. And I think cows are one of God's real gifts to humanity that has given us something so delicious and nutritious. And the nice thing about the cattle is that they reproduce very slowly and require a long time to mature to full size. So they get to live a long time, unlike some other meat animals, and they require a lot of care. Cattle are gentle animals in many ways, but they can have the devil's side to them too. There can be rogue cattle. One of the things we had to do, I had a large cattle ranch and observed cattle a lot, and we practiced holistic grazing, regenerative grazing, where we move the cattle to fresh grass, allowing the grass to be vital and restored. And now you might say, well, what does that have to do with loving your neighbor well or being a good steward of the earth? Well, taking care of the earth means using all the symbiotic parts of it to work together. Many people fantasize somehow that the world would be better off if we didn't have cows in it. But the truth is, cattle, large-scale ruminant animals like cattle, like buffalo, are an essential part of the ecosystem of grasslands, and grasslands compose a large percentage of the world's land mass. Rangeland and pasture land is not really suitable for raising vegetables. People that promote a vegan proposal think that, oh, we could just all of a sudden grow a lot more vegetables and feed humanity. But the truth is, the number of pounds of actual human flesh that you can support from a vegetable field is limited and doesn't really get to be that much bigger than what cattle can produce on lush pasture. Because yes, the quantity of vegetables may be higher under extensive cultivation, but you have to eat more vegetables to get the nutrition that you get out of a pound of beef. So, you know, a pound of beef is worth a lot more than a pound of beans. And many people who promote a vegan lifestyle promote kind of a nutritionally deprived lifestyle that oftentimes is incomplete in amino acids and leads to people having long-term hunger. And it's a fascinating subject, nutrition, but beef is so wonderful for mankind, and we need to eat more beef as a world. We need to provide more meat protein to food-deprived areas so they can have quality nutrition instead of being on a starvation diet themselves that deprives their brain of essential nutrients. But many people would say, and you can say, well, how can a guy who talks about saving the climate and reducing CO2 talk about beef in a positive way? Well, friends, properly managed beef are actually carbon negative because they stimulate the grasslands. Proper grazing actually makes the grass thicker and more vital. So, and that means the grass can soak up more carbon dioxide. And the cattle recycle nutrients back onto the land. And if we practice holistic grazing and get away from using chemicals in ranching, that poison soil life and damage things such as dung beetles that bury manure in the ground to increase fertility for the plants. We can do a lot, friends. And people may think, well, there's not room for more cows. The truth is, if we manage the grass by rotationally grazing patches for short periods of time, followed by an adequate period of rest where the grass can regrow, it's a symbiotic relationship where the production is increased instead of decreased. So we can have sharply more cattle in America providing essential food to the third world, exporting large amounts of meat. I advocate in my book, which is coming out this fall, and I hope you will go and sign up for updates so that you'll get notified when the book comes out to the Get Real Alliance and get that information. But we talk about grazing. We're going to have articles on the blog soon about grazing. But friends, don't buy into the myths that are being perpetuated by people that are really opposed to mankind thriving, advocating that we need to cut out meat instead of producing more meat. One thing we need to do, which we're not doing right now, is freeze dry a lot of the meat so that it can be stored at room temperature long term and provide a secure safety net for people, and also allow it to be exported to the billion or more people who are going hungry right now. Yes, friends, if we love our neighbor as ourselves, we need to be thinking about how can we feel comfortable eating a good meal when so many don't get to eat any quality of food at all, when they may be living on starchy root vegetables and living a nutritionally deprived life that would benefit so much from having a few ounces of beef to mix into that gruel that they're eating. We can do it, friends, if we really change our ways. And I advocate change. I don't advocate stasis. I'm not happy with the way the world is right now. If you are, I don't think you're really thinking as a good Christian who's embraced the Holy Spirit and is welcoming love into the world. We don't have near enough love in the world. We don't have enough love of neighbor. We don't have enough love of future neighbor. We don't have enough love of the land. We don't have enough love of the animals. We don't, just because we've been given dominion over the earth doesn't mean we need to treat the animals with disrespect and horror. We need to treat them with respect, not torment them, create as good a life for them as possible. Even if their lives are short and they're destined to be food for our table, we need to try to create a quality of life for them that really gives them a decent short life and a quick, painless end with as little torment as possible. Now, friends, there are many practices in America that are extremely efficient, that produce a tremendous amount of food with very few people. But that really is not being loving to the animals, and is not really being loving to people to put them in a situation where they're working under extreme pressure and productivity that is kind of automatic, robotic. So right now there's only about one person working in the meat industry for 5,000 consumers. That's an amazing number, but frankly, friends, it's too low. We need to operate in a more humane way and change things so that the working conditions are easier on the people, where the animals are taken care of. Fantastic strides have been made in animal handling in facilities to make it gentler on the animals and to have a humane death. So I'm in favor of all those things. If you want to look at something, please go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. And even better, if you love this message, that love is meaning loving everything, loving your neighbor, loving your enemy, loving the earth, loving the plants, loving the animals. Love means putting yourself second place on equal footing with other things, not being a rapacious, grabbing, getting all you can, but sharing and being generous with what you've been given and what you've made. That is what love is about. Love is kind and gentle, and friends, we need more of it. When we have people burning down people's businesses, destroying property, defacing things, spraying paint, to go out and spray nasty slogans on somebody's building or on a public space is the opposite of love. It's hate. It's saying, I'm going to destroy what you have. You worked hard to make a beautiful building with lovely stone facade on it. I'm going to degrade it and ruin it. And you're going to have to struggle hard to clean it up. And you may not be able to clean it up fully, but it's going to cost you money. I'm going to take you down. That's not love, friends. That's hate. That's the devil at work, and we need to really resist that. Now, what are we talking? We've drifted around here a good bit because love is a big subject and it covers a lot of ground. But getting back to these cattle, because I'm getting ready, I'm taping this in the morning, friends, and I'm getting ready to have a good lunch with a hamburger steak, which is one of my favorite dishes, because a good hamburger steak is so nice. A steak by itself can be great if it's in an expensive restaurant that really manages their meat well. But many times, if you go to someplace more economical like I do, a steak is going to be kind of a questionable dish. Is it going to be really good, or is it going to be kind of gristly? But a good hamburger steak that's well cooked and seasoned is delicious, and I hope you will enjoy it or share it with your family, because we all need to eat more beef to feed our brains and bodies those vital B nutrients and essential fatty oils and so many positive things, including lots of good protein and vitamins. But how we raise cattle depends on whether we have a loving relationship with them or an adversarial relationship. Do we take care of the cattle, provide them with proper food, and gently handle them so that they're not at ill ease with people? Many ranchers get into an adversarial relationship with their cattle where they chase them with a dog or run them around with a horse. But properly managed, the beautiful thing about rotational grazing is that by handling the cattle on a regular basis, they get to be very comfortable with you, and they actually come when called, knowing that they're going to new pasture. So there's a positive relationship between man and cow and grass and cow and the environment. Now, many people make a lot out of the fact that cattle emit methane as part of their digestive process, where the miracle happens in their guts of turning grass, incomplete proteins, into a balanced set of nutrients that feeds the cow and then feeds us. So we would starve to death if we eat a blade of grass or a blade of straw or other nutrients. But a cow can eat that and produce something good for us to eat, which is an amazing thing. But in the process, what makes that work is the incredible variety of bacteria and organisms that live inside a cow's stomach. It's a factory of microbes working, just like our digestive tracts are a factory of countless microorganisms digesting our food and making it available to us. A miracle of nature that God has created that really makes the world work. Friends, there are so many microorganisms working in harmony together to make our lives complete, to make a cow's life complete. And cows are an amazing animal to be able to eat forage, grass, and other plants and turn them in to quality food for us to nourish their offspring, to raise themselves, and provide that surplus of food and meat and milk that really sustains us in a positive way, that's worked for mankind for thousands of years. Now, friends, we don't know where the cow came from, but I'll tell you where the cow came from. It came from the divine hand of God creating something for man that is so beneficial, and man has guided cattle through selective breeding and picking the best animals, and that whole skill itself is a God-given inspiration that we can manage heredity to produce the best. Instead of eating the best, save the best so that it can produce more in the future. And the result is positive outcome. Man saving things for the future is really one of the keys to civilization. And the most civilized nations are ones that have harsh winters where people have to store up lots of food in preparation for a long period where there's no productivity. Civilizations stay more primitive when there isn't a need to store food. So man has developed ways over time of saving food back, of saving food for the animals. In Europe, they kept the cows, they built sheds for them to keep them out of the harsh winter weather, and stored up forage to feed them for the winter. An amazing adaptation and a wonderful thing. So owning cattle is a responsibility, and my cattle were so gentle that you could walk up within 15 or 20 feet of them. They would come readily looking for new food, knowing that they had a positive relationship with the person, instead of being left alone for most of the year and then have an adversarial situation with dogs and horses coming and hurting them and forcing them into places and giving them trauma. So our cattle were very gentle. This is the way New Zealand raises their cattle, a very gentle way, totally opposite from the harsh symbolism that you see on TV of the Old West, where you had lots of cowboys shouting and yelling and cracking whips to move the cattle in a bunch in the direction they wanted them to go, and creating lots of trauma. We need to get away from trauma, friends, and we need to work to make our cattle's lives as pleasant as they can be. Now, the best way to manage cattle for the optimum life is the way I managed my cattle, which was raising cattle for grass-fed beef, meaning my animals lived on my property from birth until their final day, never being traumatized, living an ideal life, having quality pasture, being taken care of well, and then on that final day being gently herded in a trailer and taken to the meat processing plant. But friends, that was their worst day, because cattle don't like to be moved. They don't like strange places. And it was hard on my cattle. So the ideal situation is to have a feeding environment where you can feed cattle grass-fed feed in a concentrated way, so that the cattle could just walk to the slaughterhouse, so they don't even have that bad last day of being trailered and forced into that environment of trauma. So let's work hard to do that. You can benefit by going to the Get Real Alliance, signing up for the newsletter. If you've liked this message, if you enjoy eating beef and are ready for somebody to promote positive raising of cattle for quality meat and to make the environment a better place, please donate, please sign up, send us an email and say, yes, I want to help you achieve your goals. We can do it, but friends, we need your help, and cattle need your help. We need to have a higher quality of life for all things, for all people, for all animals, and we can do that if we really focus on love, loving our neighbor, loving the earth, loving the animals, because all of it comes from God, and loving God is first and foremost. But friends, loving God can be easy to say, because God is not asking you for money. God is not needing you to be tended. God is not an animal in your life that you're taking care of, that may be frustrating you and you may be tempted to be angry with or strike out at. So those are all things that we can do to make the world a better place. And we need cattle grazing land. We've currently got land not being grazed that is going to desert, because the irony of grasses is that a grass grows up, gets mature, and it is stable, and when it dies, which all grass does go through a death, then it shades out the ground, and grasses regrow from their roots each year. So if you have a bunch of dead grass on top, it actually shades out the new growth and prevents it from being vital, and can actually end up stunning the grass and causing it to die back if that top growth is not removed by grazing or even by fire. But grazing is so much superior to fire, because fire produces nothing of value, just puts a lot of carbon dioxide back into the air and can create an erosion situation. So positive grazing is what we need to do. You can go, if you're a computer person, you can go on YouTube and search for the name Alan Savory, and he has a very good TED Talk on changing the world's path through holistic grazing to restore lands that are going to desert back to fertile, lush grasslands. He's done it on millions of acres around the world, and friends, we need your help to promote that and promote other causes that we are doing so on the Get Real Alliance. You can share this show if you've enjoyed it, if you want to make a difference, if you want to. We need you to go to the insightswithdavid.com, select the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share the information with your friends, social media. The Get Real Alliance is on social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. We need you, friends, to sign up. Followers build followers. People like to join organizations that are vital and growing, and we need to make a difference. So if this message of love, universal love, has appealed to you, if you like the positive good news that we can have a better world if we make love our priority and change things for the better, get rid of the hate, get rid of the anger, get rid of the hostility, and go to love, stimulate love, help our neighbors, provide food to the hungry. And we can do it, friends, but it takes effort and it takes motivation. And I am a motivated speaker. I hope you've enjoyed what I've said, and I hope you will share it. Go to the Get Real Alliance. That is who is sponsoring this show. We need support. Let me tell you, friends, there is nothing better when you're given a speech than to have somebody clap their hands or nod their head. And I can't see that in this studio. There's nobody looking at me in this studio. I'm looking into the camera that is projecting my image to you. The way you can show your appreciation for my message is by going to the Get Real Alliance, signing up for the newsletter, making a donation, or sending us an email, letting us know we're moving you, letting us know that you want to get behind this love movement that is inspired by God, that is commanded by God. Loving our neighbors, ourselves, friends, is just essential, and we are falling away from it so badly. We are so tempted by evil to have hate in our heart, to have bad things to say about people that are doing evil, and not forgiving people that are hurting us and hurting our society. So it's hard to love somebody that's doing ill will with you. That doesn't mean you don't encourage the police to arrest them, or in the case of being directly physically threatened with death, defending yourself. But you need to do so from a position of love, hating the fact that you may have to use violence against somebody who's threatening your life, and working always to defuse the situation and make it better. And that's how it is with the cattle herd. If you treat them with respect, never being harsh, never raising your voice, never stampeding them and scaring them, if you let them come from a loving situation, from a positive relationship, like with people, everything just works better. Now, there are some bad actors. We had to get rid of cattle because there's a few bad actors in life, in animals. There were cows in the herd that weren't loving, that didn't obey and come to me, that would try to break out and lead the whole herd away and cause trouble. And friends, if we saw one of those animals in the corral when we were working the cattle, the animal that's charging around, not going into the squeeze chute in a nice way, but fighting, and when it does get in the squeeze chute, fighting hard and wrestling and shaking the ground, guess where we'd take that animal? To the sale barn where it would be made into meat, because that's not an animal you want in your herd. That's not a person we want in our society. So people that can't love, that don't love, that are filled with hate, need to be removed from society. They need to be in prison. They need to be in a rehabilitative environment to try to encourage them to have a positive life. And we do need to rehabilitate as much as we can. But just like with the cow herd, there are some cows that are just bad because they're bad. They have that fiery side of them, and they're going to try to jump out of the pen or lead the rest of the cows out. And cows are followers, so they'll follow that bold bull out of the pen if they're led by a bad cow. So we've tamed our cattle dramatically by getting rid of the bad actors, and our society needs to sequester bad actors in our society, starting at an early age and picking out people and trying to really rehabilitate them in a dramatic way. So, friends, we've talked about a lot, but the central message is loving your neighbor and having that peace that passes understanding in your life that'll give you so many blessings if you really do let the Holy Spirit work through you and give you that abiding peace that passes understanding. So I hope you will take care. I hope you'll eat some good meat, buy some grass-fed beef if you can to support that industry, and have a blessed day.